Let's start to transition to what Ed Reed had to say on the Manning cast last night. Before we do, it's yet another pitiful performance in crunch time from a defense that just needed to close. Closing has been a major problem. And maybe it hasn't been talked about enough because of the Ravens' offensive abilities to almost minimize those concerns. But make no mistake about it. This passing defense and overall the defense in general, this is not sustainable if you want to get to where you're trying to go into January and then on to February. This is a Tampa offense that put up 481 yards. They were 11 for 17 on third down and possessed the football for over 11 minutes more compared to Baltimore, or around 11. 35 minutes and 5 seconds, the Bucs possessed the football. Baltimore was 24-55. Okay, had it not been for two massive interceptions in the first half before he went down with a knee injury from Marlon Humphrey, and had it not been for Mike Evans leaving the game after a bang-bang collision in the end zone with Brandon Stevens towards the end of the first half, this game could have been a whole lot different. They had no answers for Mike Evans. And that touchdown in the first quarter, clear miscommunication yet again on the back end between Brandon Stevens and Marcus Williams. I have a hard time pointing out only Marcus there. I think it was more on Brandon Stevens. Marcus was taken care of. I believe they sent was it Sterling Shepard in motion on that one, I think. Point being, it's starting to feel as if this is who the Ravens defense is through 7 weeks. We can talk about a handful of plays here and there. We can talk about a lack of communication, a lack of execution. But given the amount of change that they've endured, given the changes in personnel, coaching staff-wise, and some of the youth that they're asking a lot of, it's hard not to feel like at this point, this is who the Ravens defense is through 7 weeks. Maybe Ed Reed would agree with that statement. He went on the Manning cast last night and had this to say when Tampa was staging its attempted comeback.
Hey, your Ravens are giving up some easy touchdowns here. I need a little pep talk from you, buddy.
Game over in their mind. They don't understand. So. They don't understand. They don't understand the other side of finishing and being a championship team right now.
One more for those of you.
Hey, your Ravens are giving up some easy touchdowns here. I need a little pep talk from you, buddy.
Game over in their mind. They don't understand. So. They don't understand. They don't understand the other side of finishing and being a championship team right now.
Ed Reed calling a spade. They don't understand the other side of finishing and being a championship team right now. 21 fourth quarter points, a bunch of interceptions dropped. Again, 481 total yards of offense, 125 of which came on the ground. It was a running back by committee approach taken by Tampa, which was not a surprise. Baker Mayfield lit it up for 370 yards. Again, a lot of this was in garbage time. I get it. And unfortunately for Tampa Bay's sake, they lost Chris Godwin, one of their dynamic wide receivers, in garbage time to a brutal collision with Roquan Smith. The reports are that it is a dislocated ankle for Chris Godwin. And of course, that's on top of Mike Evans leaving with a hamstring at the end of the first half and not returning to the game. Tampa goes from 4-2 in the driver's seat with an opportunity to beat one of the league's best at their home stadium in the aftermath of everything happening down there with Helene and Milton, the Hurricanes. They go from that to just the sails taken out. No pun intended. No pun intended. Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Look, hard to think that Tampa Bay is actually a legitimate contender at this point if they just lost their top 2 wide receivers in a matter of less than 24 hours. So a tough blow for the Bucs. You got to feel for them. But the reality is it's just not sustainable what this defense is doing. And I don't think there's anything groundbreaking about that statement. Sure, could have been a lot different had they caught picks. Ardarius Washington should have had one. Nate Wiggins could have probably had like 4 or 5 at this point so far this season. That's simple judge machine stuff, but it's also like capitalizing on gifts. And if not for Marlon Humphrey, you know, I struggle to find outside of Marlon and Kyle, Kyle Hamilton, that is, and Kyle Van Noy, who had a sack last night. I struggle to find other players who have been consistently consistent this year. We know that Marcus Williams has had his fair share of struggles in coverage. We know Eddie Jackson has looked a step behind at times. He was their free agency acquisition in the later part of the offseason. Nate Wiggins has had some rookie moments. At the same time, he's also had some moments that are just like, all right, you got to live and die by those because the Nate Wiggins experience is sensational, and he's 21 years old. You know, Roquan Smith has a lot on his plate right now as the green dot communicator and somebody that is trying to kind of push Trenton Simpson as a first-year starter along. Roquan was very active last night. He finished with a game-high 18 total tackles, 11 of which were solo. Kyle Hamilton just south of him at 11, 7 of which were solo, including a pass deflection. Sacks came from Odafe Owe, Kyle Van Noy, and Ardarius Washington. I got to say, Ardarius always plays bigger than what he is. He's only like 5'8", $170, $180. But he's got to find a way to haul in that football. The defense has been open for business. And it's happened in a bunch of different ways, right? Whether it was Rashee Rice torching them in the middle part of the field opening night, whether it was the Vegas or Dallas tight ends torching them, or these busted, blown coverages on the back end. Jamar Chase, of course, had a day. We saw Mike Evans before he went down have that same kind of success. And so at some point here, it doesn't exactly become satisfactory to hear that it's just execution. It's on us. We got to get it cleaned up. This, that, and the other. At some point, you say, no, this is who you are, and you have to start to mitigate it. And that's why Dean Pease was brought in. It's only been a couple weeks. I'm willing to have patience. And obviously, as they continue to stack and win games, it's not magnified as much. But I think we can all agree that this is not going to get it done consistently among the league elites. And obviously not in January as well. Marlon was ruled out at the end of the first half with that knee injury. He did not allow one catch, and he finished with 2 picks. All-pro Marlo is chilling. And he keeps this up, he might have to get into a multi-week podcasting schedule on the Punchline. What do you say? I'm sure that wouldn't create a stir within the fan base. Now, would it? And Ardarius acknowledging what a lot of us have referenced. I know how to fix it, Flock Nation. I'm going to come down with those. Ardarius Washington talking about his butterfingers, which would have led to an interception, and they could have had, Baker Mayfield finished with 2? After 3 in that win and 51 points against the New Orleans Saints the week prior. He could have had probably 5 last night. Easily 5.